Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for being here this morning. I want to start off first by thoughts go out to AJ Jacobson. Obviously took a good spill, and thoughts and prayers with him. I know he'll heal up well. It's game week, so he better heal up all right. He'll be in good shape. Exciting time of year. I know it's week one. Also, of course, our soccer teams and volleyball teams getting things going. So a lot of activity on campus. And then, of course, our first game against Auburn over in Dallas. Certainly have had a great camp, feel strongly about the culture, the way that we're progressing as a program. A lot of productivity, a lot of competition has provided some great battles throughout camp, and we feel like we're progressing, we're getting better. And now as we are completely in game week mode, looking forward to a couple more battles shaking out here throughout the rest of the week. With that being said, open to questions.
Over here, Ryan.
Mario, how do you go about preparing for a true freshman quarterback? And given that that's what you're dealing with, do you expect to have more adjustments on the fly defensively, or do you think you know what you're going to expect?
Well, you've got to be prepared for a lot of things now. He's a very talented football player, and I know that whenever you name a starting quarterback, it means you have full confidence in that young man. They might play two, so we are prepared to play with both, but both quarterbacks are great passers. They could run the ball as well. They're very familiar with their coach's system and how they do things. So certainly, because it is game one and there isn't any true college film logged out, you have to be ready to make your adjustments. So your eye discipline, your ability to understand your scheme inside and out, the adjustments you have to make on the fly become critically important so you can play fast. Certainly don't want to be out there, thinking and going through paralysis through analysis. You want to be able to play fast.
Right here in the middle, James.
On the depth chart, Mario, you left several oars out there, but one in particular just stood out was the kicking competition. We have three. Clearly, you're not going to use three.
I want to make things exciting for you and keep you guessing now, okay?
Yeah, do they have varying roles in the kicking game? Is there a range marker or something? I mean, not giving anything away, but three kickers is kind of unheard of in oars.
It is. I want to make this a special press conference for you in particular. So those guys, they all deserve a chance, and on some days, some guys are ahead of others, and then it flips the other day. So we want to keep this thing going through when I say live, our full contact days, and see how it shakes out. But they all do things well. Some are better at some things than others. So we want to let it shake out after a couple more days of practice.
On the right, Jerry.
Yeah, Coach, in the bowl game last year, you had 2 or 3 weeks to prepare for what was considered a very strong defensive line at Michigan State. Now, possibly even a tougher defensive line. You gained less than 40 yards rushing with 3 or 4 very experienced linemen plus Panesil. So what has changed? What is going to be the difference because your running game is going to affect the pass, vice versa. Anyway, what's the difference this year since you had that time and you had some experienced linemen back then?
Well, either way, you always got to improve on what you're doing, whether it was good or whether it wasn't as good as you wanted it to be. Michigan State had a very good front. They did a good job stopping the run. Got to enhance what we do it better, a couple tweaks here and there, and progress.
Yeah, how does your experience coaching in the SEC and obviously knowing quite a bit about Auburn benefit you, or does it going into this game?
I think familiarity does help some. You understand certain schemes. You maybe got a feel for personalities on how certain coordinators call games or whatnot. But when you watch them on tape, I mean, they do a great job week to week changing what they do, implementing their adjustments to be able to stop particular offenses and the vice versa to expose certain defenses. So I think there is some benefit, but I don't think it's the total X factor in the game.
On the right, Ryan.
Mario, I know you have tunnel vision on all things Ducks, but from the outside, this is viewed as a pretty big game for the Pac-12. Do you at all feel like you're carrying the banner for the conference with this marquee matchup to get the season started?
I think anytime you play a game, you're representing your conference as well as your university, your community. But we don't try to make it anything outside of us preparing as our program as we face a great opponent. So we really try to stay focused on just the simple stuff.
Right here, James.
You mentioned, Mario, that obviously both quarterbacks can play. They've put out that information all month. Whitlow was also recruited as a quarterback at Tulane. He can throw out of the Wildcat. Mm-hmm. How do you go about preparing your defense, in particular Troy and Isaac, when they're making so many of the checks and the calls to read keys, but to not, you mentioned paralysis by analysis. They can do a lot of eye candy that's just total deception. And how do you try to prepare but not be able to, get frozen up?
Well, that's the most important thing is, as a coach, when you prepare for a team like this, is making sure you eliminate the clutter so guys can play fast. Because if you can't play fast against a fast and explosive team, it's going to be a problem. So knowing that, discipline becomes a huge factor. Knowledge of our scheme, alignments and assignments become as important as they could ever be. So, and if you stay focused on that, making sure you see the things that you need to, not letting your eyes wander, you always give yourself the best chance.
You're on the left, Eric.
A couple depth chart questions here. I think before camp you said Kayvon and DJ were guys you're going to move around. They're both at defensive end. I'm wondering if that's permanent. And then what do you like about JaJuan as a punt returner?
Well, the thing here on this piece of paper, and I blame this on Patrick, I had more things to move around and more names to add, but we're limited to what we can do. We just have a lot of versatility with these body types and what we do on defense. So to kind of, at least on paper, give you an idea of who's going to be playing, we just arrange it like this. But those guys are flexible. They have versatility that allows to play them at end, at outside linebacker, all those things and more. JaJuan, you were asking about as a punt returner. Him and Travis Dye have just really been effective, and first and foremost, in securing the ball, making great decisions. And both those guys they're really good athletes. They can certainly, create some good plays for you. I mean, that list could have been 4 or 5 deep as well. We went with this one right here, thinking that more likely than not, one of these two guys is going to be out there for the first punt return.
Matt, you're on the left.
I think a lot of people have got a lot of respect for CJ Verdell, but not a lot of people have talked about Travis. There's an aura between those guys. What have you just seen from Travis? I know he had a strong freshman year, but to put that aura there and maybe not make that spot as locked in for CJ as many expected going into the year.
Well, when we say locked in, maybe we were short an oar with all the oars we gave out. Maybe we were one short. At the end of the day, it's the only 2 freshmen in the country that rushed for a combined almost 1,800 yards. No one else in the country had a 1,000-yard rusher and a 700-plus yard rusher as freshmen. And proud of those guys. And now they're a year into the system, more mature physically, mentally. Those 2 guys, they're going to be playing the entire game. So, yeah, it's probably better to think of those guys as guys that play together there than signaling out one as a lockdown guy. But I'll tell you what, the way the depth chart and some of the young guys that are coming around, we want to keep competition alive, going in all these spots and make sure that, if guys can help us win, they're going to be on the field.
On the left middle, Rob.
I wonder just how many guys total you think will play, because we look at these oars and try to guess who's going to take the first rep, but obviously you got a whole game to play. Just how deep do you think you'll go on both sides of the ball just over the course of a standard rotation while the game's competitive?
Well, you have to kind of wonder, well, how long is this game? What's the play count going to be for the game? Because that certainly plays into it. And then it's a tempo team. There are times during the game where you're not going to be able to substitute as well. So all these guys are guys that we feel confident in playing, and really we feel like a couple more guys could play as well. We just didn't want to overdo it on this small piece of paper Patrick gave me. I keep blaming Patrick for this stuff. I just think we spent a lot of time during camp, just 2-spot and everything, so guys could get reps, and we feel confident in a lot of guys going in there and playing. Are some guys ahead of others? No doubt. I mean, that is what it is, but this at least gives an idea of guys that should see the field at some point in time.
They bring back a lot of experience and talent at the secondary. I'm just curious what your feelings are of the 3 freshmen behind the starters that you've listed at receiver, and just kind of their overall development from day one of camp now going into game week.
Well, they've been forced into situations where they have to develop quickly, and they've done a great job. And the whole process for us during camp was to attack the grind, to make sure the mentality was one that was aggressive, one that made us put them in situations to see what they can do. Because this is when we have to find out, right? If we're going to line up there for game 1, we need to know who has our best chance to give us an opportunity to make a play, to help us move the sticks, to help us make an explosive play. So we put them in enough situations against our better players where we feel confident enough where these guys could go in there and do a really good job for us.
Eric on the left.
One spot we don't see an aura is at punter, and I'm wondering if Blake kind of has taken that over, and if that's a guy you expect to be out there for the majority of those situations.
Blake right now is a starting punter. That's one that I feel confident about.
It was it was the most significant position battle on offense, Mario. On paper, I understand you could go up until the game, you could make changes during the game, but is Dallas and at right guard to start on play one at this point, or will you take that up until the game? And secondly, I'd be remiss if we didn't ask the status of both JaJuan and Cam.
Okay. Well, the guard tackle positions, we're going to take that all the way up until the game, just because guys deserve that. If they deserve to keep battling, we're going to give them that opportunity. Cam has not gone full go. He's very close to doing so. So do we feel optimistic? Yes. Has he done it yet? No. JaJuan has been cleared. He's been full go. He yesterday he participated in practice, and he's 100%. So we're excited about his return.
You mentioned also about Kayvon and Gus, and I know that position battle as well. Is that also one that will go up until game time, or because of experience, do you go with Gus? Or
Yeah, Gus he's come on strong. The guy's put a lot of work, a lot of time into his craft, and it's showing up in the way he's playing. And then, KT continues to improve on a daily basis, and the increments which he improves in are very impressive. We want to keep that going, and we feel both those guys could help us win football games.
There's a lot of expectations for this team to be very good. I'm just curious, after camp, why do you have confidence in this team to have the year that they're going to have?
The culture and the work invested. I think there's no hocus pocus to it. I mean, we feel that, we've gone to a system, we've gone to a blueprint that's demanding, but at the same time not demeaning. It's very encouraging. It develops guys at a very high level, and you see that. You see that in the building. You see it when we go onto the field, and I think with that, you build trust, you build confidence, and therefore you execute better. It means that much more to each member on the football team because there's a genuine love for each other and respect as people and as colleagues, as competitors. So for those reasons, I think that we'll continue to progress. We feel like, again, we've taken another step in the right direction throughout camp.
What are you expecting at the line of scrimmage between your offensive line and the defensive line? Is that something you're really looking forward to? Just on paper, both sides are considered elite units nationally.
Mm-hmm. Well, those are a lot of big bodies, a lot of big talented guys, and certainly those are going to be some unbelievable battles. The physicality on both sides is impressive to watch, and I know that as competitors, I know both sides are ready to get after it, but it's more than that. I think the physicality of their corners, I think the physicality of their safeties, the speed, explosiveness of their linebackers, the power of their offensive line, the speed of their wide receivers. They have explosive players all over the place, their backs. I think there are so many battles that to say that it's going to be just focus on one is hard to say. Of course, I know a lot of people, there's going to be attention drawn to that. But I think across the board you could expect a very physical game on both sides. I think both, tremendous amount of respect for Auburn and how they do things. I've had the opportunity to watch them play and be an assistant coach and playing against them. They're as physical and as impressive as you can see.
Two more. James?
To follow up with that, Mario, is there a defensive line? Because on sheer raw talent, you just don't see very many defensive lines, especially in this league, that you could have 3 first-round picks off this defensive line potentially. Is there a line that when you're preparing your guys to say this is the level of challenge and more some than what you've faced before? Is there a unit that you have identified and said, guys, you've got to be prepared for a game like this and that much higher?
Well, I think when you introduce your offseason program to your football team, you're always preparing them to play against elite competition. Will you ever see a defensive line that has 3 projected, first-round picks in it? Will you see that often? That's very rare. I think you saw one last year. I think Clemson had one. I know Alabama's had 1 or 2. I mean, it's impressive, and it's impressive because, we all know that the impact a defensive line could have on a game. Do you change your preparation? Look, regardless of when and who we play, we always prepared to be the best that we can be. Right, to make sure that we are operating at optimum levels to have our best chances of success. So our guys have watched film. They understand. They understand that this is a great football team and that, games like this always require every ounce of everything you have.